So last night, you went to watch the game in London, so I did your skill session for you last night with the guys. Good group of kids, good players, all in their draft year, and I noticed I can communicate well, but my skills are no longer where they were because I don't go on the ice very much. And so for me, when I'm trying to do the demos to show them what to do, and it's just not as clean as I want it to be when I'm showing them. And I'm still better than all of them, so it's okay. But I can feel that it's not where it should be for them to really take the drill seriously, maybe, right? So my question, I was thinking of this just on my way home last night, is I feel like I kind of know what your answer is already, but I think it's a good discussion, is how important is it that you can do the things you're teaching when you're teaching them? So it could be teaching anything. It doesn't matter what it's a hockey thing or whatever. So I was just kind of thinking that to myself when I was driving home last night. I was like, man, I was just kind of like, I can feel it's going away. And it would, I'm still at the age where if I went and was on the ice a lot more, it would come back and it'd be fine.
Sure.
But the fact that I'm not, and then I go out and try to teach because you're mostly the one that does that. So I'm just out here and there and I can feel it going away. And I'm like, man, I don't know if they're going to buy in as much because I'm not as good as I should be, or I'm not so much better than them that
they're not sitting there go, okay, wow, I want to do that.
Exactly. Right. It's like, yeah, like he's a little better, but like, he's like way older. Like he should be better than that. It could be that attitude. I don't really know what they think. I'm just like thinking in my head about it, but I was thinking of that on the way home. So just that's the question. What do you think about that?
Loaded question.
Loaded.
Yeah.
Loaded question.
I didn't think it was going to be loaded. Loaded question. Is it important that you are able to do what you're teaching? I think it is. I do. I think it is. Or recognizable that you, like, there's a resume or something up there that says that you did.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like if I was doing this out of the blue, like with my skill level now, and went on the ice with kids and said, here's what we're going to do, I wouldn't probably, in certain areas I would, but I wouldn't wow anybody anymore. Right? I would say I don't, but that's about my own thinking.
That's your thought.
I would say my stick handling, yes. Some of my shooting, yes. My skating, not so much anymore, unless I do like it's not in real fast motion.
Yeah.
You know, if I could do agility stuff, I'm still pretty good with that. So if they could see that, okay, this guy's got it, and they like, because I think it's like, for me, the teaching piece, knowing what you're like, being able to do what you're teaching is it's big because sometimes you could teach things, and if they don't see it in live, they don't see it in action, and then look at the teacher and say, oh, because you know what you're doing, then it becomes less believable or less intriguing or less. I'm trying to think of the right word.
Yeah, you don't get the buy-in the same way.
You don't get the same buy-in.
It brings another layer.
Yeah.
If you can do what you're saying and you can really show what's going on and what they need to be doing.
Yeah. So if you look at it, if you look at someone and he's wearing jeans on the ice, and I mean, that's extreme, but if you're looking at an instructor that looks like, well, I don't know if he's older, and he's telling me what to do, but I don't think he ever did it. You lose a little bit of credibility. Yeah. So I guess that was the word before. If you can do something at a high level and teach it with words, I think you bring your credibility way up here.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you can use examples, so wow, here we go. Right? Yeah. So for example, if I show a kid, if you're coming off the weak side wall and you want to get to the middle of the ice for a shot, right? So how you're pulling it back, how you weight transfer, and what happens with the goalie, he has to go with that puck. So you've thrown it over that shoulder or that down low on that side because he has to shift. He has no choice. And then as you do it fairly fast, or you do it with good speed, good smoothness, and a good shot and you did what you said you were going to do. Now it becomes believable, and they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Right. But if you can't do any of those steps in between, it becomes less believable.
Right.
So as a skill instructor, it's important. The flip side of that is it's not all about what the instructor can do. No. What's important is what the instructor can teach the kids to do.
Yeah.
Right. So if you take the NHL level coaching, someone like, what was his name? Mustache. Tom Watt didn't play in the NHL. What's his name? Hitchcock was never really a hockey. Scotty Bowman wasn't really a hockey player. So how do they get that message across? Well, they're very, very intelligent people that can explain things, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But for the most part, players look at someone who hasn't played or can't do the thing, just like someone says, if you go to a gym and someone says, well, you should do this, this, and this, and they're 40 pounds overweight and they're eating a jelly donut, that person's probably losing credibility. Or they can't do the deadlift that they're showing, you lose credibility because show me, tell me, and I might hear you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you show me and tell me, then I'll actually understand.
Yeah.
Right. So so if you can do those details, and you lend a lot more credibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that the answer? Is that
Oh, I knew.
Answer all
Yeah,
the
I
points?
kind of knew. Yeah, I kind of knew that's where you were gonna go with it because my thinking on it was I could still for me personally when I was doing the stuff last night, I could still do it all.
Yeah.
But it's not at the level I wanted it to be at.
Yeah.
So for them, it might have been believable or not. I don't really know what their perception was.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking of it in terms of being a teacher, being an instructor, whatever.
Yeah.
But because the flip side of it is just whoever the coach is that's coaching Sidney Crosby, like, what are they telling him? It's like, you're not doing anything better than him, right? So it's
100%.
like, but he still has a coach. Tom Brady still has his coach.
Yep.
And so there's a place where you need that credibility.
Yeah.
And then there's other times where you don't necessarily have to be able to do it, but you need to be able to communicate it or something like that. You know what I mean?
So that's my point to having an instructor or a coach. Like there should be a point where all your students are better than you,
right?
Or all your players are better than you.
That's why you're the teacher.
Yeah. Or else you still play.
Yeah.
So as a instructor, because I went through this phase not a phase, because I would always back it up with words. An instructor can fool people with, especially you get a kid that, whether they were a high level player or a real, well, there's guys out there that have the YouTube channels and stuff that never played at a real high level, and they go out and they do the skill stuff, and it looks like they're really good, but they couldn't play in a game if you asked them to.
Yeah.
They'd be horrible, or they just never could get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But they could get through that pylon and spin and throw it through the legs and all that stuff, and it looks amazing. But in a game, sometimes that doesn't even apply.
Yeah.
So what happens is people get sold on the optics of, oh wow, this guy's really good, he can teach me, but he may not be able to teach you a thing.
That's right.
It might be just do what I do, but how do you do that? Why you do that is not available in his vocabulary. So it's actually doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's where. So there's a lot of times where people say, could you demo, like even the pro guys, right? Can you just demo for us?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll do it. And then they laugh and they go, Jesus, right?
Oh yeah, dude, I remember it.
Yeah. So
I remember
the first time I kind of hit a rut, and Ekblad goes, Andy, after the session, he goes, I've never seen you fall before. So I just did.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
But the thing it's not about the instructor and it's not about the coach. The main thing about coaching and instructing is getting the message to the player.
Yeah.
And that communication piece is huge.
Right.
So, and that was a lot of times players have to humble themselves because, that was a really good point, what you said about Sidney Crosby. Like, what are you going to teach me? Mm-hmm. But having said that, that's, let's just change gears. What are you going to teach George St. Pierre in fighting? Well, when he goes in, when he fought, or the best fighters fight, is when they spar. If they were the best at everything, then they wouldn't need to spar. So what happens is they hire, let's say, the best boxing guy that can spar with to challenge them beyond what their limits are. Doesn't make them the best. Doesn't make George St. Pierre or that MMA fighter the best fighter necessarily, but the more rounded you can get in every discipline,
right,
the better you can be at every discipline. Yeah. It makes them a more well-rounded fighter. So they'll go to the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu teachers and grapple with them. Yeah. And they do that in every discipline to raise their game.
Yeah.
So It's not like they're the best at everything.
Yeah.
Or although they could be, they typically have someone better and coaches that are better.
Yeah, it's like across all things.
Yeah.
They're the best on average.
Yeah, so you take a hockey player now, and you go, okay, well, what can you teach Sidney Crosby? Well, it might be wall work, might be the rims, it might be the face-offs. Like, it's all the little nitty-gritty things.
Yeah, and face-offs is a good one, right? Like, he struggled with that.
Nitty-gritty things, tips, different ideas, and maybe if Adam Oates was his coach, who was a great passer, he would be able to open up his eyes on different things.
Yep.
There's a lot of different levels of people, and I think that goes back to when Wayne Gretzky coached, and I think there's a few guys like that. Like Boom Boom Jeffrey was a coach for a while, didn't last a whole lot. Because you play doesn't make you a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Gretzky wasn't a good coach, but like the words are that he wasn't the greatest coach because and I don't know if this part's true, because he just expected people to understand what he understood. And that could be a thing, but it might be more of a fact that he couldn't really put it together, or maybe he just wasn't passionate about coaching.
Yeah.
Wasn't for him.
For sure.
But anyways, that's a long answer to, I forget what the question was now.
No, that's a good answer though, because I think this is going to lead into like a bigger topic, because I want to talk maybe in the next episode or in the next few, we'll do one about just how to being a good teacher just in general.
Sure.
Because this is a good like question for that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important. It's because there's not it goes back to last week we were talking about people, how they comment on stuff and they just want to throw a blanket answer or a blanket statement, or they have one perspective on all situations, and that's not what it is. And when you're teaching, I was talking to a dad yesterday he was sitting in here, one of his kids, they come and work out with me, and he was just saying like he's confident that we know what we're doing with the kids because we know how to read the game. You know, and one of the examples I gave him was when I'm training, especially a group of young kids, because it's a group of young kids, I was like, you have to keep it fun. You have to make it. So one of my strategies, I just answered one of the podcasts, a listener question about it too. They wrote in and they were asking about, they have a team of 8-year-olds, and he's like, I want to try to teach them hockey stuff, but they're 8. So it's like, how much can you do?
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, well, you can't really do too much because there's only so much they can pay attention to. But one thing that I'll do with young groups is we'll play some kind of game where there's like a lesson buried in there somewhere. Yeah. So I'll let them play for 5, 6, 7 minutes. Then I'll stop the game and I make them tell me what the game is for. Then once they figure out what the game is for, then they go play again, now knowing what the game is for, and we see what happens. And that's one way for that group. But if that age group, that it can be effective to train them, right? Using games like that with a young group. But some parents or some teachers or coaches or trainers that don't understand how to read the game might come in and say, well, what am I paying for them to come play games?
Exactly.
Right? And so this is where the conversation comes in about how to be a good teacher. Is you have to be able to read the game and what's appropriate, how much to communicate, how much to not. Like if you're trying to give the kids a life lesson and they're checking out, not paying attention, that's not an effective way to teach them.
Yeah.
Whereas you could give that exact same motivational speech to a group of 16-year-olds and it really hits.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that's part of the teaching game, is like trying to balance that out. So I feel like that's a good thing we could talk about.
Yeah, I like that.
We could do a full. I mean, we could talk about that for forever. So
yeah,
that was my opening thing. You got anything else before you want to go into that topic thing? I feel like you had something else to say.
So we're going to talk about. You asked me to talk about shooting today.
I did. I asked you. I made you
shooting and stuff. But I ironically enough,
to be
quite frank,